I never thought I would be sitting down to write this, but here I am because my life went from calm and steady to absolute chaos in less than 2 weeks. I'm 33, male, working as a mid-level government official in the Department of Trade and Commerce. My work was not flashy or overly exciting, but I had just been promoted to a higher clearance position, which gave me a sense of pride and stability. My family had always been proud of me, especially because my job was seen as stable and respectable. Even though I was not making a crazy amount of money, I grew up in a family with a lot of drama. Cousins and uncles who never spoke to each other, fights at family gatherings, grudges passed down like heirlooms. My parents cut off contact with some relatives when I was still a teenager, and I never really questioned it. I just accepted that certain cousins or aunts were people I would never see again. One of those people was my cousin Alex, 31, male. I remembered him vaguely from when I was a kid. He was the kind of cousin who was around at birthday parties when I was 10 or 11. Then he vanished from family events when the adults started fighting. My parents never explained in detail, but the phrase generational drama was used a lot. Something about money and inheritance disputes that left scars deep enough to split entire branches of the family tree. So I grew up without him in my life. I moved on, built my career. I never thought much about that side of the family again. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I got a message on Facebook from someone named Alex. At first, I did not recognize him until he introduced himself as my cousin. He wrote this long message about how he wanted to break old family barriers and rebuild ties because he was tired of the generational drama. He said life was too short. He wanted to reconnect. He had seen a post about my promotion and it reminded him of the old days when we were kids. He said he admired how far I had come and he wanted to reach out before more years passed. I was surprised, but also strangely touched. I had always wondered what it would be like if some of those family divisions could be healed. I remembered being a kid and not understanding why cousins I liked were suddenly not around anymore. So, when Alex reached out, my guard was down. I thought maybe this was a rare chance to rebuild something. I told myself people change. Maybe he had grown up and matured. Maybe he just wanted family back in his life. He asked if we could meet up and I agreed. We decided to grab dinner at a casual restaurant near my place, and when I saw him, I recognized his face, even though it had been almost 2 decades. He had the same eyes, but he looked older, a little worn down. He was friendly, laughing, telling stories about his life, saying he regretted not staying in touch. He kept using words like rebuild, reconnect, new chapter. I found myself opening up and welcoming him. We exchanged numbers and decided to hang out the next day too. He came over to my apartment and I cooked for him. We talked late into the night about our families, about how silly it was that grudges had lasted so long. He seemed so genuine, telling me how proud he was of my government job. He even said it was inspiring. I felt good, like maybe I was doing the right thing. He told me he had been traveling a lot for work and was trying to settle back down, and that reconnecting with family was part of that. He asked a lot about my job, what it involved, what kind of documents I handled. I thought nothing of it because people are always curious about government work. That night, he slept on my couch. The next morning, he was gone. I figured he had gone out to get breakfast or run errands. But when hours passed with no response to my texts, I started to feel uneasy. I checked around and realized some of my papers were missing. Not my wallet or cash, but some of my work documents that I had brought home in a locked folder. At first I thought maybe I misplaced them. I turned the whole apartment upside down, but they were not there. My stomach dropped. Later that day, I got a call from my supervisor at work. He asked me to come in immediately. When I arrived, I was told that my name had been flagged at the border because someone tried to use my identification details in connection with moving restricted goods. My heart sank. I had no idea what was happening. They showed me records and copies of documents that looked eerily similar to mine, except altered. It was like someone had tried to forge them using my name and position to get goods across the border illegally. I immediately thought of Alex. He had been so interested in my job, asking specific questions about clearance and documents. He had disappeared without warning the morning after staying at my place. And now suddenly my identity was tied up in a smuggling attempt. It felt like a nightmare. I told my supervisors everything from how my cousin had reached out to staying at my place. But they looked at me like they were not sure if they could believe me. They said it was under investigation and that my position was now under review until things were sorted out. I felt betrayed, stupid and sick all at once. I had welcomed Alex with open arms, treated him like family, and within 2 days he had taken advantage of me in the worst way possible. My parents had always warned me about that side of the family, saying they brought nothing but trouble. I had brushed it off, thinking people could change. Instead, I had walked right into a trap. The days after were a blur. Investigators came to my apartment asking about my documents, when I last saw them, what Alex looked like, where he might have gone. I gave them everything I could remember, even showed them the Facebook messages. But Alex's profile had already been deleted. He vanished completely, like he had never existed online. The only proof I had was my memory of him sitting on my couch eating the dinner I had made, talking about rebuilding family ties. I kept replaying everything in my head. How he had smiled when I talked about my promotion, how he leaned in when I described the clearance process, how he asked me to explain what kind of documents I kept at home. At the time, it felt like genuine curiosity. Now it felt like he was scouting me, figuring out how to use me. The worst part is the shame. I work in a government office where trust and integrity are everything. Now my name is connected to an investigation about smuggling. My co-workers look at me differently. Some believe me, some do not. My boss says they're waiting for the outcome of the investigation, but until then, my responsibilities are limited. I can feel my career slipping out of my hands because I trusted the wrong person. My parents were furious when I told them. They said they had warned me about Alex's side of the family for years. They said I was naive to let him into my home. They reminded me of all the stories of shady behavior from that branch of the family, but I never imagined it would reach this level. I thought the worst case scenario was maybe an awkward dinner or some resurfaced drama. I never thought it would be smuggling and forged documents. Every day I wake up with this heavy pit in my stomach. I check my phone, half expecting a message from Alex. Some explanation, some apology, but nothing ever comes. He has disappeared completely, and I am left behind with the mess, trying to prove I had nothing to do with his scheme. My friends tell me I should have been more careful, that you cannot just trust someone after 20 years of silence, but in the moment it felt like the right thing to do. He was my cousin, my blood. He talked about healing and rebuilding, and I wanted to believe it. I thought letting go of grudges was mature. Instead, I ended up in one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Now the investigators ask me for details over and over. Where exactly did he sit when we talked? What time did he leave? What did he say about his job? They want me to recall every little thing as if I should have known from the start. But I did not know. I had no reason to think he would come back into my life just to steal from me. The stress is eating me alive. I cannot focus on anything. I spend my nights scrolling through social media, trying to see if he pops up somewhere. I even searched his name in old family records, but he seems to have covered his tracks well. It feels like he only came back into existence to use me and then vanished again. My parents say this is exactly why they cut ties years ago. They say Alex and his immediate family were always chasing schemes, always getting into trouble. They say I should have trusted their judgment instead of giving him a chance. But part of me still hates how cold that sounds. I wanted to believe in family. I wanted to believe people could change. Now, I'm the one paying the price for that hope. I do not know what will happen to my career. I don't know if the investigation will clear me quickly or drag on for months. I feel like every day my reputation takes another hit. I worked so hard for this promotion, spent years proving myself only to have it threatened because of one stupid mistake in judgment. I have not told many friends the full story because it is embarrassing. How do you explain that you got duped by your own cousin? That you opened your home and heart and he stole from you? It sounds like a bad movie plot, not real life. But it is real, and I am living in it. I feel stupid for posting about my promotion too. If I had not shared that online, maybe Alex would never have found me. Maybe he would not have known I was in a position that could be exploited. I thought I was just sharing good news with friends and family. Instead, I put a target on my back for someone I never expected. Now I'm paranoid about everything. I barely go online. I keep my documents locked up in a safe. I double check my doors at night. I do not know if Alex is still in the country or if he is long gone. I don't know if he will try to reach out again or if he has already moved on to another scheme with another unsuspecting relative. What hurts most is how quickly he disappeared. He sat with me, laughed with me, told me he wanted to break old barriers, and then, by morning, he was gone with my documents. There was no hesitation, no conflict, no remorse. It was like he had done this before, like it was just another job for him, and I was stupid enough to make it easy. So now I'm left wondering, am I the idiot for letting him in? Should I have known better after years of family warnings? Am I the one at fault for being too trusting, or is it completely on him for betraying me so coldly? AITA? Update 1. Hi, it's been a while, so I thought of posting an update about what happened since things went down, and honestly, it feels like I've been living in a fog. The investigation did not slow down at all. In fact, it got worse. They started digging into every corner of my life, pulling up my financial records, my phone logs, my work history, even interviewing my neighbors. I had nothing to hide, but the way they looked at me made me feel like a criminal. Every question felt loaded, like they were just waiting for me to slip up. I was called into my department office twice a week, sometimes just to sit in a room for hours while they went through my paperwork, asking the same questions again and again. What made it unbearable was the way my co-workers started treating me. I went from being someone people respected to the guy everyone whispered about in the break room. When I walked in, conversations would die out. I'd catch people glancing at me and then turning away quickly, and some of the people I had thought of as friends suddenly had no time for me. One day I walked past a group in the hallway and heard someone mutter under their breath about me being stupid enough to get involved with smuggling. It hit me like a punch. I felt like no matter how many times I explained that I had nothing to do with it, people were only interested in the scandal. My parents tried to be supportive, but even they were losing patience. My dad kept saying this is why we cut off that side of the family. My mom cried when I told her that my promotion might be suspended permanently if my name was not cleared. My youngest sister, 28, female, barely spoke to me for a while because she thought I had brought shame to the family. Every family call turned into a lecture about how I should have been smarter, how I ruined everything by trusting someone I barely knew. I stopped answering calls because I couldn't handle hearing the same thing again and again. At one point, investigators searched for my apartment. They went through my drawers, my laptop, even my trash. I had nothing but the sight of strangers combing through my things and made me feel so powerless. Things escalated when the investigators told me Alex's name popped up in connection with a group already known for cross-border smuggling. Apparently they use people with legitimate government ties to forge papers and make shipments look clean. Hearing that confirmed everything for me. But instead of feeling relieved, it made me panic more. If he had done this before, it meant I was just one of many. And if I was just another pawn, then clearing my name might not be easy at all. One night, I couldn't sleep, so I started scrolling through social media and ended up finding a profile that looked like him, under a different name. The pictures weren't clear, but the posture, the smile, it looked just like Alex. He was tagged in a photo at a bar in another state only a week after disappearing from my place. I took screenshots and sent them to the investigators. They did not say much except that they'd look into it, but I could tell they were already drowning in information and did not care about my little discovery. Distress got so bad I started drinking more than I should, just to shut my brain off for a few hours. I stopped working out, stopped cooking, lived off takeout and coffee. Some nights I just lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life derailed so fast. One day I went to work and my boss told me I was being temporarily reassigned to a lower clearance role until the investigation ended. I felt humiliated. The promotion I had worked so hard for was slipping away and I couldn't do a thing about it. The gossip spread outside of work too. One of my old college friends messaged me asking if it was true I was under federal investigation. I had no idea how he found out, but it made me realize people were talking. Suddenly I became paranoid about everyone in my life knowing or thinking the worst of me. I even considered quitting and disappearing to another city just to start fresh, but I did not because I knew running would only make me look guilty. The most shocking part came 2 weeks ago when investigators told me some of the documents used at the border were traced directly back to my department's printer log under my login. My heart stopped. I swore I had never printed anything like that. The only explanation was that Alex had somehow accessed my credentials while staying with me. I remembered him asking to use my laptop to check his email. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I realize he might have copied my information or planted something without me noticing. I tried explaining, but they stared at me with blank faces. Since then, I've been in constant meetings with legal advisors trying to prove I did not intentionally leak anything. My lawyer keeps telling me to stay calm, but every day it feels like the walls are closing in. The worst part is Alex is still out there, probably living free, while my whole life is being dismantled piece by piece. I have had months where I thought about reaching out to distant relatives on his side to see if anyone knew where he was, but then I remembered how my parents warned me they were all trouble. I can't risk letting another snake into my life. Still, I check random profiles online, scroll through mutual friends, hoping to see a trace of him. Some days I'm filled with rage, imagining what I'd say if I ever saw him again. Other days I feel nothing but exhaustion, like my soul is drained and I can't fight anymore. The constant suspicion from everyone around me makes me doubt myself even though I know I'm innocent. So yeah, that's where I am right now. Stuck in limbo, career hanging by a thread, reputation trashed, and all because I thought letting my cousin back into my life was the right thing to do. And sometimes, late at night when the anger fades, I start asking myself if maybe everyone else is right. Maybe I was the fool who brought this on myself. Update 2. It's been a while, so I thought of posting an update about what happened since, and honestly, things have spiraled in ways I did not think were possible. The investigation reached a point where I was officially suspended without pay, while they continued to dig into everything. Getting that email was like having the floor pulled from under me. My entire career that I worked so hard for was frozen with a single decision. I sat in my apartment staring at the words suspended until further notice and felt my chest tighten like I couldn't breathe. My parents flipped out when I told them. My dad yelled that this was what happens when you let snakes into your life. My mom cried for hours saying she was scared I would end up in jail, even though I kept telling her I hadn't done anything wrong. My sister refused to talk to me. She blocked me on WhatsApp after sending me one final text saying I had ruined our family's reputation. Hearing that stung more than anything because I had always been close to her. The loneliness has been brutal. Friends stop checking in. Co-workers avoid me. Even neighbors give me side eyes when I walk out to get the mail. I did not realize how quickly people can distance themselves when there's even a hint of scandal. Every time I step outside, I feel like I'm being watched. I even caught myself looking out my window at night to see if anyone was sitting in a car across the street. Then came the part that shook me the most. The investigators told me that some money had been funneled through an account opened in my name, except I had never opened that account. They showed me bank statements with transactions linked to cross-border payments, and my name was printed clear as day. I almost fainted seeing it. They said the account was set up with my ID and documents, which means Alex must have taken more from me than I originally thought. They asked if I had ever given him my social security or personal details. I felt my stomach churn because I remembered him casually asking for my Wi-Fi password and using my laptop. It was enough time for him to copy whatever he wanted. I have been meeting with a lawyer regularly now, and the bills are piling up fast. I had to dip into my savings just to keep up with legal fees and rent since my paycheck is gone. Every night I sit at my kitchen table surrounded by papers, bank statements, and copies of reports, trying to piece together how my life turned into this mess. Sleep is almost impossible. I toss and turn with worst-case scenarios running through my head. Last week something happened that made my blood run cold. I got an anonymous letter slipped under my door. Inside was a single piece of paper with a scribbled note saying, "Stop talking or you'll regret it." There was no name, no return address, just those words in messy handwriting. I froze, staring at it, then immediately called my lawyer, who told me to give it to the investigators. They took it, but their faces gave away nothing. I do not know if it was from Alex, someone connected to him, or just some sick prank, but now I feel even less safe in my own home. I started sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed. 2 nights ago, I swear I heard someone trying my front door handle at 3 a.m. I stayed frozen in bed, holding my breath until the noise stopped. Next morning, there was a small scratch on the lock like someone had tried to tamper with it. I reported it, but all they said was to stay alert. My apartment does not feel like home anymore. It feels like a trap where I'm waiting for something to happen. My mental state is all over the place. Some days I'm furious at Alex for ruining my life. Other days I'm so drained I just sit in the dark staring at the wall. I started drinking heavily again, sometimes polishing off half a bottle of whiskey just to knock myself out. The hangovers are brutal, but at least they distract me from the constant anxiety. I thought maybe family could help, so I reached out to one of my uncles on the side of the family connected to Alex. He picked up the phone, listened for a minute, and then hung up on me without saying a word. Next day, I found my number blocked. It hit me that nobody wants to get involved because they probably know more than I do and want to stay out of it. Yesterday, I got called into the investigator's office again, and they grilled me for hours about the bank account. They asked why my signature was on the application form. I told them over and over I had never signed anything, but they slid the paper across the table, and it looked exactly like my handwriting. My lawyer leaned over and whispered that it was probably a forged copy, but the investigators did not look convinced. I felt my throat tighten because no matter how many times I say I'm innocent, the evidence looks worse and worse. Now I'm sitting here, writing this update with my head spinning. My career is gone. My family is disgusted with me. My bank account is draining fast, and the person who caused all of this is out there living free. Sometimes I wonder if he's watching me from afar, laughing at how easy it was to pull me into this. Update 3. I did not expect giving another update, but here I am. And things just keep getting worse in ways I never thought possible. The suspension turned into a formal administrative probe and then into a criminal inquiry when new evidence surfaced. They found metadata linking my work laptop to files that were accessed the night Alex stayed over, and even though my lawyer argued it was planted, the tech team said the timestamps were real. Every new piece of so-called proof felt like another nail being hammered into my coffin. The harassment escalated. I began getting calls from unknown numbers at odd hours, silent calls that ended as soon as I picked up. A package showed up at my door with a ripped envelope and nothing inside except a smear of coffee. Someone slipped a photo under my door of my apartment building with a circle drawn around my balcony. The investigators catalogued it and told me not to touch anything, and then looked at me with those tired eyes that said they had seen this before, and it rarely ended cleanly. My lawyer insisted I document everything and promised to file for protective measures, but paperwork couldn't stop the adrenaline spikes or the nights I spent watching shadows move across my curtains. My friends kept their distance. One by one, they offered vague sympathy and then disappeared, citing busy schedules or bad timing. The loneliness felt deliberate, like people were stepping away to avoid being tainted by association. My parents tried to help, but their support came wrapped in lectures and reminders about family history. My sister unblocked me briefly to send a single message telling me to get help, and then blocked me again. It hurt more than any accusation because family was the whole point of why I had opened my door to Alex in the first place. Now family felt like thin ice that could fracture at any step. The money situation is crushing. Legal fees drain my savings faster than I could swallow. And with my salary gone, I have to sell things I never imagined parting with. I sold my old guitar, then a vintage jacket my dad gave me, and then started canceling subscriptions and cutting corners on food. Paying rent felt like a gamble. Every morning I opened my bank app and flinched at the shrinking numbers like it was some slow motion punishment. The only thing that kept me from absolute panic was my lawyer's promise they were building a case to show the forgeries and the planted evidence. But promises sound hollow when the reports piling up seem to say otherwise. I found out through a tip that Alex had used another alias to hang out with a group of border brokers in a border town 2 states away. The tip came from someone who said they bumped into him at a bar and thought he looked like someone who had been on TV. I gave the info to investigators and they followed up, but by the time they reached the place, he was gone. The trail was thin and cold, like someone had scrubbed it deliberately. Every discovery about him made my stomach twist because it proved he was professional, not some desperate cousin looking to reconnect. It made the betrayal feel surgical. Anger is the only thing that kept me functional. I channeled it into getting every shred of digital evidence I could find. pulling old messages, saving screenshots, and drilling investigators for updates. I started sleeping with my laptop on the charger beside me, ready to email something the moment I thought of it. Last week I nearly lost it in public. Someone from the office walked into the coffee shop I was in and saw me. The look on their face was enough to make me want to crawl under the table. Instead, I stood up, left my coffee cold, and walked until my legs hurt. I do not know what will happen anymore, but I have decided to stop being online till all of this mess is fixed. I do not know if it will ever get fixed, but I really hope it does. I really hope I get my life back. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.